Saudi Cop, May 5th, 5th of May. I'm sorry, yesterday, apparently, according to social media, I was supposed to say, May the 4th be with you, on the 4th. That's a thing. My bad, I just saw it today. I'm old. Forgive me if I'm not social media savvy. May the 5th, when you have talked yourself into what you want, stop talking and begin saying it with your actions. Wow. Okay, there you go. Persuading yourself that you can do something is a strong beginning. Next, develop a sound plan and get into action. The longer you delay, the harder it will be to begin. That is absolutely true. Just jump in the fucking water and start swimming. I promise you. As scary as that sounds, that's the reason you need to do it, because you're afraid of it. And if you sit there and contemplate it and think about it, because you're scared, your mind will come up with more reasons not to do it. You know, why it's scary, and your mind will justify your actions. So either way, whether you take action, your mind will justify that and tell you, hey, you finally did something, you got off your ass, and more importantly, you'll see results. If you don't take action, your mind will justify it and say, well, we didn't really want that anyway. Yeah, you did. You were just scared. So yeah, once again, my boy's hitting some good points here. And then I've talked a couple of times about analysis paralysis, or paralysis by analysis is another way I've heard that done, where you keep looking at the information until you find a problem, right? And you're always going to find a problem, which is what he addresses right here. Seldom is a plan perfect. That's right. That's right. So if you want to poke holes in something as a reason not to do it, you'll find plenty of holes. There's lots of reasons not to take a risk, take a chance, take action, move forward. There's lots of reasons. You can always find reasons. And heretofore, you've done that, right? So now it's time just to take the action and then watch how your mind will adjust and start backing up that decision. Your mind has your back either way. So it's up to you to drive the ship, to steer the car, and let your mind catch up and say, yeah, that was a good idea, taking that left turn. And it will do that. If you have a clear vision of your goal and a plan that is flexible enough to allow you to deal with unexpected obstacles, which come up all the time, or take advantage of unforeseen opportunities, don't delay another minute. So, new real estate agents think that they've done their job and they should be paid when there's a contract on a property. And what I always tell them when they come into my brokerage, and what they learn over time from experience, is the work really starts when you get a contract on the house. When your buyer puts a contract in on a property to buy it, putting offer, getting accepted. When you have a contract to buy a house and you're an agent, selling side or buying side, that is when the work begins. I call it putting out fires. There's always obstacles, he calls it, that come up that are trying to stop you from closing. You earn your money as an investor or as a realtor by getting that house to closing, by taking action, thinking outside the box, solving problems to put out the fires to get to the closing. It's nothing but a battle where, the title company doesn't want to close, the insurance company doesn't want to close, the lender doesn't want to close, the home inspector doesn't want to close. And I'm not beating up home inspectors. Their job is to find things wrong, but sometimes they find things wrong that aren't necessarily deal breakers, but it scares the buyers, and the buyers were, like we were talking about in the beginning of the paragraph, the buyers are looking for an excuse to get out because it's a major purchase for a lot of money, it's a big commitment, and most people are not comfortable with that. People want a house, and then they get into the buying, and the home inspector finds something, and really it's trivial. Right? It's a relatively easy fix for an experienced person, but for a new buyer or a second-time home buyer, they're like, oh, I knew we shouldn't have done that. That just confirms their fear, right? And then they can take action, which is to back out of the contract. But guess what? You still want a house. Your goal is still get a house. You're going to go and get another one. Unfortunately, for the seller and the agents involved in the first transaction, your fear drove you away from that particular transaction, you're going to wind up buying a house. But a lot of times you'll back out of 1, 2, 3, 5, 7, whatever. Your realtor drops out at that point saying, oh, they're never going to buy a house. They're just tire kickers. And you get a new realtor and then you buy the first house you see. I mean, because now you're not scared because you backed out of 7, whatever. You know what I mean? That's what this is talking about. I've seen this in real life many, many times. Don't delay another minute, right? Take action, get going. Just getting into action, even if you do have to make adjustments later, which you will have to make adjustments later. Course corrections, we called them earlier in this book, will help you focus your mind and channel your energies in the direction of your objective. Absolutely. And I think I gave a really good example, a couple of examples there of real life and how that chapter applies, how I've seen it apply with buyers of houses, with agents, learning that the work really starts when you get the contract, and then there's going to be fires, there's going to be problems, there's going to be obstacles, and you make your money by overcoming those obstacles. And really it's not you overcoming them as much as you helping the buyer and or the seller overcome those obstacles. Sometimes during a home inspection, they'll find that they need a new roof. And the seller will be livid and going, I'm not going to pay $20,000 for a new roof. I've lived under this roof for 20 years and it's been fine. Well, yeah, because you got 20 years life out of it, it's got 10 or less left because of the harsh Florida sun and, the hurricanes and high winds and all that. It tears roofs up. So after 20 years, yeah, you're looking at replacing the roof. And there's regulations, like if they're getting what we call a govy loan, right, a VA or an FHA loan backed by the government, the roof has to have, I think, 5 to 7 years left in the opinion of the inspector. So it's an opinion, the opinion of the inspector, not fact. Nobody could say how long that roof is going to last, but if it's the home inspector's professional opinion that it's less than 5 to 7 years left roof, the seller has to replace it, and that's a big ticket item. A roof is not $100, so that's been a sticking point on some where you're helping the seller, and you got to think, well, they're asking for a new roof. What do you want to do? And once again, what I would say to them, just I let them get over the emotions. I let them vent, let them get out because they're angry, they're frustrated, they didn't plan on that. There goes a hunk of their profit, right? So they're not happy. So let them not be happy. Let them get pissed off. Let them get angry. Let them say, fuck it, take it off the market, blah, blah, blah. Then the next day, or 2 days later, or whatever, after they cooled down and after they vented and got it all out of them, right? I sit down with them and say, listen, when I came to see you, to sell this house, you said you want to sell it because of blah, 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 right? And that's putting it back, mirroring, right? That's putting them back in. I asked questions when I first met them, and I've determined the reason why they want to sell their house. Do they need to sell their house? Do they want to sell their house? Why? I asked why. Most agents don't. They're just like, oh, you're going to list the house? Oh, good. Throw the shit up against the wall and hope it sells. And in this market, that will actually work because it's such a seller's market right now. All an agent has to do is get a listing, and it's sold. It sells very quickly if it's decently priced in a good neighborhood. Even if it's not in a good neighborhood, it's selling right now. But most times, in most markets, you've got to actually do some work to sell the house. So by knowing why, that armed me for problems down the road. So when there was a problem with the seller, and I knew their why are you selling this house, I could throw that back at them and go, hey, you said you wanted to move to Tampa. Well, yeah, I do. Okay. So when you sell the house, so let's kill this buyer like you want. Yes, kill them. Send them away. Fuck them. They're greedy. Okay. When you get another buyer, a month down the road, 3 months down the road, 6 months down the road, next year, who knows? Because that's kind of telling them, hey, you got a fish on the hook. Why are you throwing it back and going in for another fish? You got a fish on the hook. You got what you want. That's my subtle way of doing that. You see where I'm going with that? When I say a year, it's not going to be a year to sell their house, but you put that thought in their head and all of a sudden it's going to take a year to sell my house. No, I didn't say that. I said whenever it sells. But by saying 3 months, 6 months, a year, they're starting to go, oh, okay, maybe it's not such a good idea to dump the buyer. And it's not. You see? So you're like, oh, you manipulative fuck. You're using Jedi mind tricks. I'm trying to help the seller. They're emotional right now and they're not making a good business decision. So as I go on to continue to explain to the seller, maybe you'll understand more too. The next buyer, whenever they come, and it could be the next day, you never know, it depends upon them. In today's market, it would be the next day or the next hour. As soon as you put it back active again, you'll have 10 realtors sending you offers or over list. But in normal markets, you will get another offer at some point. When that offer comes in, most likely, and this is exactly the conversation I had with the seller, they're going to get a bank loan. The vast majority of transactions are bank loans and not cash transactions. If they get a bank loan, guess what? There's going to be an inspection required. And more insurance companies are asking for something called a 4-point inspection. So even if you don't get a home inspection, which is entirely optional, up to the buyer, recommended, why wouldn't you try to find out as much about this major $100,000 purchase you're doing? So get a home inspection, but it's not required. More insurance companies saying, before we insure this property, you need to show us that everything's in good working condition, because insurance companies hate to pay. They collect premiums, and don't want to pay. So they do everything in their power to make the odds that they don't have to pay you. So on a 4-point inspection, it's HVAC, right, your air, heating, cooling, your plumbing, your electric, and the roof. Right? They want to check the roof, how much useful life is left in the roof in the opinion of the home inspector. So even if the new people don't do a home inspection, which is very rare, the vast majority of buyers cough up the $300 to $500 to do a home inspection, there is going to be a 4-point inspection required by the insurance company, most likely, in the vast majority of cases. So between those two inspections, somebody's going to come up and say, oh, hey, by the way, yeah, we still love this house, we want to buy it. This is the second buyer now. But you need to put a new roof on. So, if you're going to be faced with the same situation down the road, deal with it now instead of dealing with it later. You've got a ready, willing, and able buyer, who we hope is going to get past the financing. But this is going to be an issue for any buyer except a cash buyer. And if they're a smart cash buyer, they're going to spend the $300. And most of the people who have cash to buy a house are smart. And if you're smart, you're going to get a home inspection. And we will have the same problem with that. They'll want a new roof too. So by firing this buyer, that's what I would say to the seller, you're not solving the problem. And that's everything I just said to you is calm, logical, whatever. Understand when they're emotional, when this first happens, and they're fire, fuck them, screw them, give them his money back, get them out of here, get them out of here. Getting another buyer doesn't solve the problem. So now that I explained it to you, you understand. And once I explained it to the sellers, they understood. It doesn't solve the problem. I'm not tricking the seller into doing the transaction so I get a commission. If I'm the listing agent, I'm going to get a commission anyway with the next buyer or the next one or the next one. He could fire 10 buyers at some point if he sells his house through me, and I've got the listing right now. I'm going to get commission. So it's not that. It's not about the money. I am helping the seller. I am making him understand, or her understand, that not selling it does not fix the problem. The problem's a roof. And that's not the buyer's fault. That's not the seller's fault. But it's a problem. And typically and reasonably, the seller would fix that. Now, can there be some negotiations where you say to the buyer, I don't have the money to put a new roof on. I'm not comfortable putting a new roof on, whatever, but I'll give you a $5,000 discount, and then you take that with your money, if the buyer has the money, and you fix the roof. Sometimes that's possible. Sometimes that's not possible, because once again, the buyer is using a lender, and the lender wants the roof fixed before they buy it. Sometimes, and this is where the more you know, the more you blow. The more you know, the more transactions you get done, because there's a product called a FHA 203B. Most realtors haven't heard of it, especially new ones are not familiar with it. It's a renovation loan. It's an FHA loan, which means 3.5% down. Very good for buyers. A lot of buyers can afford that, can do that. But it knows there's work that needs to be done. So a less than perfect house that, say, needs a roof, the buyer can get a bigger loan that includes professional contractors' bids. Now, once again, the seller would have to lower his price at least part of the way. Maybe he doesn't eat the whole roof, but part of the negotiation is the buyer switches from FHA to FHA 203B. And the buyer will pay for half the roof, the seller will pay for half the roof, with a reduction of price. Right, the house was going to go for $110,000, now it's going for $105,000, and the buyer's going to get a loan for $110,000, which includes the $10,000 for the roof. So the buyer's chipping in $5,000. The seller's giving $5,000. Boom, you got a $10,000 roof, $12,000 roof, whatever. Depends upon the pitch. It depends upon how big the house is. Blah blah blah. But you get my point. Is that they can negotiate. It doesn't all have to be on the seller. Typically, the seller just pays for a new roof. It's just part of the deal. I told you I worked with that investor who got me for the 2%, whatever. Hell, he probably put 7 roofs on properties in the last 2-3 years. He buys them at auction. He's from another state. He doesn't even see the damn houses. And sometimes they need a roof. Sometimes they need a hot water heater. Sometimes they need AC. It's all just numbers to an investor. And if you buy low enough, surprises like that don't hurt you. You don't make as much money on this deal. Okay, next, moving along. Investors have this mentality. It's just a house. They're not emotionally attached to it. They were planning on making $50,000 on this flip. It needs a new roof. Now they're going to make 40 or 35, or once again, depending upon what the roof costs, based on the pitch and the slope and how many angles, and does it have little dormers and blah blah blah. Is it a flat rolled roof, or is it a 3,000 square foot mansion with Spanish tiles, 50-year roof with the little barrel tiles that look so nice. I had that in South Florida. It's a great look. I love that roof. Very expensive though. So as you can imagine, doing one of those costs a lot more than 10 grand. Great stuff today. Yeah, like I said, it's amazing this dude wrote this stuff literally in 100 years ago, 90 years ago, and how much of it is relevant to what I experienced in the 90s and the 2000s and 2010s. He's dead on. That's all I can tell you. So I hope this helps. I've been rambling on for a long, 16 minutes, almost 17 minutes, sorry. But I think it's good information. If you're interested in learning this stuff, I think you learned something valuable today. Great Way Buddha, peace out.